wrong for the last generation. Maybe you have a choice.
The Republican candidate
for governor. Have sexual relations with
I realize that this is something he is
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Backfire. We're getting ready to start the year. Bing, bang, and the bong. Here we go. Yeah. Everybody's in here reading their newspapers, doing their homework. I'm telling you, I'm just really proud of this team we've put together here with Franklin Chansey and John Stanberry.
Team we put together.
Well, I just want the listeners to know that I'm negotiating with NBC to leave. Made me a substantially generous offer.
You and Megan Kelly will have something in common then, won't you? Oh, Megan Kelly's leaving Fox. What do you think, John?
Look, I like her. I like her show, but I don't like disloyalty, and I think that this has been a pretty meteoric rise for her, and I can't imagine it happening somewhere else that way. And I don't like disloyalty.
In other words, she had a real opportunity and did really well now.
And now she's, look, she has every right to do whatever she wants to do. And if, as some of the reports come out, it is that they made her an offer that she could have a daytime slot, because she does have 3 young children, and I'm sure she'd like, if you look at her schedule, probably doesn't leave a lot of time for the kids. Mm-hmm. But I can't imagine that Fox News wouldn't have accommodated those kind of requests as well if that had been a real sticking point.
$20 million contract she turned
Well,
in.
at least $20 million. They said it may have been above that. Yeah. But the story is that NBC, it didn't offer that much, that some of this was in flexibility and work schedule and things like that.
Hey, John, I believe you'd have gone to work for them for a whole lot less than $20 million a year. Franklin, you would have too, wouldn't you?
Not me.
I think Franklin would have switched to Fox for that kind of money.
Well, they do need a voice of reason. Maybe they'd pay for it.
Geraldo and is going to be upset that you're saying there's no voice of reason on Fox.
Geraldo's the voice of reason.
Juan Williams, come on.
Okay, I like Juan Williams.
Juan, I like Juan too.
Juan's boys are Republicans.
Juan, bless his heart, he'd argue with The Rock.
That's his job.
What do you think? I mean, Megan is really going over to the other side now, and they don't really have a time slot lined up for you yet, from what I understand. They're talking about an afternoon slot, then they were talking about a Sunday night slot. NFL then interfering with the Sunday night slot, and not sure when.
Look, I think she asks good questions. I think she's actually pretty even in her questions. There are times when the Trump people were mad at her. There was obviously Hillary wouldn't come on the show because she was invited over and over again. But I think all of that probably indicates that she was pretty even and fair with her questioning. So I like her. I will tell you too, somebody that went to the Republican convention made the comment, this person didn't really care for her or for Sean Hannity, but said that in some of the group meetings that Hannity spent hours talking to people. He shook hands. He stayed in the crowd. He talked with everybody, said that Megyn Kelly walked through the room, was surrounded by handlers, and didn't speak to anybody.
Yeah.
Well, Megyn Kelly was getting death threats at the time. So it might have been a little different.
Who was she getting death threats from?
There was a lot of animosity over this Trump thing during the process, according to her.
His takeaway was that even though he didn't really care for either one of them, that Hannity did really seem to care about the people and spent a lot of time meeting people. And that
but Hannity isn't a journalist. She is.
Well, she's not either.
She was a lawyer.
She was a lawyer, a prosecutor who got an opinion show, Franklin. Now, I agree with you. She's more of a journalist than he was.
I'm not knocking him. He's a partisan, though, without any question.
Well, that is true.
Partisan? Sure. He's a Trump supporter.
let's not talk about his mental health.
What about, I was going to talk about some local stuff, but we got into this. What about WikiLeaks and Hannity's show he did last night? How do you pronounce that, Daniel? WikiLeaks, not WikiLeaks.
Well, I missed
he ran for an office a long time ago.
When the wiki. Well, I didn't see it. What happened?
Well, it was a good show. It was they were talking about the Russians, and basically the guy point blank said 100%. He didn't get his information from Russians.
Well, that didn't really answer the question, though. We don't know where the people who gave it to him got the information.
Well, they got it from a computer.
Okay.
Well, look, I'm sort of all over on this. A year ago, Sean Hannity thought Julian Assange was the scourge of the earth.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, because he's helpful to Trump's agenda, he's okay. My point is, I agree with a lot of what Assange said. Now, I'll tell you, I wouldn't take what he tells me for the truth to save my life, because he's probably a habitual liar. Franklin's right. We don't know who did it and who ended up giving it to him. Former CIA director now says that there could be multiple countries involved. My biggest problem with all of this is, A, you can't prove that they had any influence on the election whatsoever. First off, Pennsylvania is not connected. Their voting system's not connected to the internet, so there was no hack. The counties that put Trump over the edge in Wisconsin and Michigan have paper ballots, so there's no way a hack had anything to do with that. Although, at the same time, 52% of Democrats polled actually believe the Russians not only hacked, but changed the vote totals. So that kind of gives you an idea how crazy the Democrat Party is right now.
First of all,
do you believe they hacked and changed the actual vote totals, Franklin?
No, and I haven't seen two stories in 2 months claiming that either.
52% of Democrats polled believe that.
I'd like to know who did that poll.
I'll get it for you in just a second.
The facts are that that's not even the issue. Nobody's trying to change the outcome of the election. But what happened here is clearly wrong, and we have to take steps to deal with it.
You're absolutely right.
All right? And it's not that they changed the vote totals. The fact is they were selectively releasing information on one party.
No, that's
not the other.
That is actually not true.
Oh, tell me about all the Trump
here's
information
the
they
deal.
were
The Republicans had better cybersecurity, and they weren't able to get the Republicans.
Well, the whole notion that you're going to blame the victim is just silly.
I'm not blaming the victim. It is what it is. They did try to hack the Republicans, and they didn't get in.
Well, let's rephrase. Let's rephrase it.
Our entire intelligence establishment, going back over 2 administrations, have all come out and said there's absolutely no question about what actually happened here. Now, the real question is, what do we do about it? And that's where the focus ought to be.
Well, let me ask you about that then, Franklin, because Senator Cotton proposed some things just a couple of months ago, and the White House asked him not to do it. He actually proposed, he got a call a couple of months ago from a senior administration official right after the election, and he asked him to remove items from a bill because it was too provocative towards Russia. Now, that's just 2 months ago. So why has the administration all of a sudden jumped all over this?
Well, first of all, it's not just the administration. And number 2, the president, to his credit, went out of his way not to spend a great deal of time talking about this issue during the election.
Now, you're talking about in 2012 when Mitt Romney said Russia was our main geopolitical foe, and actually talked about cyber danger, and the president ridiculed him, and the entire Democratic Party and the entire journalistic community ridiculed him for that? Are you prepared right now to admit Mitt Romney was absolutely correct 4 years ago, and you all were wrong?
I still don't think Russia is our primary geophysical.
Well, then why are we doing all this stuff all of a sudden? Because, by the way, the
I
president
don't
was
care
made
if it's
aware
the country.
in June.
I don't care if
June,
it's the country
Franklin.
of Togo
June.
who did it.
You mean
John.
like the
We're
country
going to
of-
investigate
right.
this and get to the bottom
You mean
of it,
like the country
like a
of-
lot of Republicans want to
I
do,
don't
who are
disagree.
trying to be
That's not the point
bipartisan
here.
and putting America ahead of
Franklin,
the party.
but the point is, if
No,
you were putting
no,
America
no,
front, you would
this
have done
is-
it in
this
July
is-
when
no,
you found out.
no.
Why didn't he stop it in July?
Because you and everybody like you in your party would have been jumping up and
You mean
down
like
saying,
Tom
the,
Cotton, who actually
saying
did
the
it?
president was trying to rig
You
the
mean like
election.
Tom Cotton, who actually did it, and the president asked him not to?
What they
That
asked
Tom,
him
that
to do
that
was
effort.
to change the way he wanted to do it in the bill, and he
No, he
disagreed
didn't.
with
He
it.
asked him not to do it at all. Tom Cotton actually proposed another agency that would have combined all of our agencies, all of our efforts, and the Obama administration told him it was duplicative and that we didn't need it. Now, all
Because
of a
he didn't
sudden,
have the clearance to
now-
know everything that was happening at that point.
Franklin, this was just a month ago.
No, it was before the
No,
election.
it wasn't. It was after the election. By the way, Franklin, who hacked 20 million people, including government employees and including senior level security clearances? Who hacked that?
I don't know, John.
China. 2 or
Okay.
3 years ago. What did we do to them? Nothing.
Oh,
So
you don't know
the
that.
DNC
You don't
gets
know
hacked.
that.
Yeah, we do.
No, you
we
don't
didn't
know
expel anybody. We didn't expel their people. We didn't kick them out of, close their agencies down.
You don't know if we took any steps.
So in other
to deal
words,
with that, did you?
20 million people are hacked, including security clearances. President didn't really care. But John Podesta gets
Here's what
hacked,
we
calling
know,
it
John.
being ugly
If
to
you're,
Jews and blacks
if you're
and
being an
Hispanics,
honest
and all
person,
of a
John,
sudden we're all
if you're
over.
being an
If you're
honest
being
person,
honest, you
John,
wouldn't be worried about being hacked.
If you're being an honest person, you know that there is a difference in this case. And the difference is this. All of these nations are engaged in cyber espionage with
Including
each other.
ourselves.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's
What
right.
was Stuxnet?
That's right.
What was Stuxnet?
That's right. We did it.
Right.
That's
We did.
right.
And now
Hold
all of a
on. Let me
sudden we're-
finish my statement. Jeez.
Okay, time out, John. Let him finish.
The difference here is this is an overt attempt to affect an American election.
You think it really was?
Well, that's clearly what it was.
Well,
I don't
wait a minute.
disagree.
No, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. Let me say something about that. I think WikiLeaks, as they say, they found something wrong and
Really?
reported it.
Did they?
Okay. Wait a minute. What about the DNC giving away the information on the debates? I mean, what about this kind of stuff?
Fine.
Well, frankly,
But
Well,
the fact,
I mean, was
the
that
fact
ri-
is, the
was that
fact
right?
is,
Was
the
that
fact is that they were doing it to one party in an election.
No.
Yeah, no, hold on. And this is all I'm going to say about this. Neither one of you would dare look anybody in the eye and say you wouldn't be making the same argument I'm making if the shoe were on the other foot.
Franklin, did they
Okay.
try to
That's the
hack
end
the
of that.
Republicans?
That's exactly what
does
you would
all
say.
Your
No,
people,
hold on.
Franklin, do all of your people agree they tried to hack the Republicans?
I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know.
They didn't get in. Your people were inept, and they got caught. And by the way, Franklin, as far as the election is concerned, which leaks that they made were altered and falsified?
I didn't say they were altered and falsified.
Right. So all of them were actual correct leaks of actual DNC documents,
Okay.
correct? So
As far
your
as I know.
argument is, as far as the election being changed, is the American people got too much information and you would have rather kept them in the dark.
No,
Is
what
that your
I'm
argument?
saying is they didn't get balanced information.
Because we don't do stuff like you all did. We didn't rig our system. Matter of fact, the system was rigged against our eventual winner. You people rigged the system for Hillary and got caught.
You're the one who said the system's rigged. Your president says that.
And you know what?
I
the
don't agree with
Republican
that.
voters put the person in office
I don't
to
agree
oppose
with that it was rigged. I never believed that.
So you
I
don't
do
believe
believe.
that Diddy Wasserman
I do believe.
Schultz slanted things against Bernie
I
Sanders?
do believe, however, John, that when a foreign country tries to meddle in our elections on a bipartisan basis, as Americans, we have a duty to do something about it.
Well, I agree.
Which part of that do you disagree
Actually,
with?
Franklin, let me agree with you. I do agree with you. By all means, Obama should not have tried to get Benjamin Netanyahu beat. He should not have diverted funds, U.S. funds, into a campaign against a foreign head of state. You're right. Thanks for pointing that out.
Okay, John.
I guess, I can say this in a nice, gentle way. if you weren't doing anything wrong, you wouldn't have anything
we'll never
wrong
know
to
what
report
was
about.
going on in the Republican side, will we?
Well,
and we all
I
know,
think
we
we would
all
have.
know that Donald Trump, God bless his soul, is a paragon of virtue and never says any outrageous things. That would never, ever happen if we were reading the Republicans' emails, would it?
Well,
Come on.
Let me ask you something.
I'm sure that
Do you
Steve
think-
Bannon
do you
had
think-
some really nice, emails going through.
Look, I
it was
don't
all
disagree
full
with
of
you.
flowery,
You're
wonderful,
right. I
lovely
don't disagree
language.
with you.
That's all I'm saying.
Franklin, I don't disagree with you. I am just terribly sorry that our people were good at cybersecurity
So
and
you
your
say,
people were
John.
inept.
So you say, John.
Folks, please feel sorry for Franklin and the
I don't want
Democrats.
you to feel
They're
sorry for
inept.
them.
They can't help it. They're incompetent and inept.
Yeah, I noticed their incompetency today as construction in America hit a 12-year high
Yeah, because
today.
Trump's elected. And people
12
have
no,
confidence.
John. Month after month after month of growth in that. Trump gets no credit for that. Zero.
Well, then George Bush must get the credit because he got all the blame for the last 8 years.
He got the blame for what happened 8 years ago.
Should we give Obama credit for the stock market going up right after
I
the
will
election?
give him credit for
Well,
gun sales.
you should give him credit for it going up 100%
Gun
during
sales.
his administration.
He's done an excellent job
Gun
of gun sales.
In fact, as far as I can tell, everybody you support made a killing on the Obama administration.
What do you mean?
I will wager you now that Trump does not duplicate the
Actually,
economic
Franklin,
success.
Your Hathaway guy, Berkshire Hathaway guy, Warren Buffett, has made $8 billion
That's what I just
since
said.
Trump went into office.
Absolutely.
Since Trump went into
That's
office.
right.
Because people are finally excited about an economy that's going to grow and a government that's going to shrink.
You know, Franklin, I've been through this. I've lived quite a few years in my life, and I've gone through the Democratic versus the Republican regimes, and so forth. And what typically happens is like a roller coaster; it goes up and down. Okay.
Agreed.
Now then, what's happened is the Democrats have gone in there and they've got everything so messed up. It'll take a Republican the time to get it fixed, and about the time to get it fixed, the Democrat will get elected again and take all the credit for
That
it again.
will take the Republicans to agree with each other on what to do, and I haven't seen that yet.
Well, they will.
They will.
Yeah. I think the Republicans will come together. They're having to get used to Donald. I'm telling you something. Donald Trump is something brand new for America. Republicans and Democrats are going to have to get used to it. He operates differently than any politician we've ever had.
What he
in
does
office.
is he does things that if Barack Obama had done, you guys would have been trying to impeach him.
No, I think he does things that have a lot of common sense behind them. I mean, I really do think he makes good decisions. I think he's great at making good decisions. What about General Motors going to Mexico?
What about them?
Trump's sitting there talking about right now, before he even goes into office, they're making these cars in Mexico and then shipping them back over here and not paying a tax on them.
Okay.
Why would we be making General Motors cars in Mexico?
Why do we make any products in other countries?
Well, that's a good question. As an American, why
Okay.
would we?
Well, if you want to argue that American corporations have a social obligation to their country to put it first, then you and I will probably have some common ground. I suspect, however, that my friend John over here probably has a different view about that.
Well, in other words, you're saying go make it as cheap as you can anywhere.
Well, that would
you
be
can.
the free market argument.
Well, Steve, here's the problem. One thing we're not getting on this, and he's right about this on free markets.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of nuances to what Trump's doing. Some of it's good.
Right.
You know, when you read some of the statement from Ford, for example, where they talk about they're really excited about the decrease in the regulatory red tape. When
That's
they're
right.
excited about the
There's
cut.
a reason they've left our country.
But there's a difference between that and threatening to tax people. For example, you could buy sugar right now much cheaper if we weren't implementing tariffs to protect the Louisiana sugar growers, because you can grow sugar cheaper
When you
other parts of the
put
world.
tariffs on these people, you can
You
expect
hurt-
other countries to retaliate.
Well, plus, Steve, here's one of the average poverty level person in America lives a better lifestyle than the average middle class, middle income person in Europe. And one of the reasons for that are places like Walmart, where you can buy things cheaper. And one of the reasons you can buy things cheaper is because certain parts of the world do things quicker and easier and cheaper than other parts of the world.
The other part of that is, let's say Ford's building a car in Mexico. What if 50% of the parts in that car were manufactured in plants here in America?
Plus, you've got
Are you taxing them too then?
But the reverse of that is also true. You've got cars here
teaming up on
that are
No, I'm just saying
you've got
you
cars
can do whatever you want to do, but I will tell you this: all these things that you're doing are things that lots of Democrats proposed over a 20 or 30 year period, and the Republican Party went.
That's actually
crazy
true.
over.
The Democrats are going to be happy if they can curb their partisanship with some of these things. Now, look, I'm not against all of it, but there's a balance that you have to strike here. I'm also real big on right-to-work laws. And if you think about it, what we're talking about here when you move outside of the United States is the exact opposite of right-to-work laws, Steve. I mean, you support a right-to-work law because you shouldn't have to pay a wage that is artificially high. Well, what these companies do when they get out on the international scale is they go, look, I can pay a third of the wages in Mexico that I pay in the United States.
Well, John, I want to ask you a question. Why do you think Ford is even thinking about not building their plant in Mexico?
Well, now, look, some of this is the PR. Some of it is the PR of his tweets.
Sure.
Some of it is concern over actually being punished, and some of it is that they're encouraged by the cut in the corporate tax rate and
regulations.
Which I'm all for. I'm all for.
So what happens if we cut the regulations? What'll happen in America? Just cutting the regulations?
Well, that in and of itself lowers the cost of doing business.
That's exactly right. Where we can compete.
Somewhat, but the labor is your biggest problem.
We're not going to change that aspect of it.
For example, let me give you an example, Steve.
Okay, so we should take let slave labor.
Well,
basically,
see,
that's
you
what
need
it
to
amounts to.
you're looking at me and I'm bouncing back and forth on this issue. You're now going over to a really extreme left-wing talking.
No, I'm just asking you. I mean, should we go to China where they lock people up
here's
and
here's one of your problems.
1 meal a day?
Here's one of your problems. If you study economics, what you'll see is the natural progression cycle for an economy is that you move out of a labor and manufacturing-based economy and you move into a service-based economy. Yeah. And that's what we've been doing. We're at the high end of that kind of curve. Mm-hmm. And so that's not a problem if your people get trained, if your people get the education and the training to be able to provide the services. Our problem is we've also become a spoiled nation. So people, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to go to trade school. Well, guess what? If you don't go to college, you don't go to trade school. Only thing you're qualified. Well, even if you want to work, but you won't get training. Only thing you're qualified to do is a production type, manual labor job. Well, but my point is, how much do I owe them? Do I owe them a 30% higher cost on a car because they want the job but they don't want to get the training?
No, you owe them the opportunity to be able to get a job.
The only problem here, Steve, is what are you going to say when the consumer
go over here and take it for nothing?
But what are you going to say when the consumer price index starts shooting up because the cost of these goods is going up because of labor costs?
Let's take it to another level. Should Germany now start imposing taxes on Volkswagen for building cars here?
For building cars here?
Yeah.
Because we sell a lot of cars to the rest of the world.
Maybe the American cars will start selling again.
Well, you're missing the point.
They have been selling.
If you manufacture a car in the United States and you ship it to Germany,
right,
and they add a huge tariff onto that car in retaliation for our huge tariff on the Audi that they made in Germany and shipped here, then the cost of our car goes up and the sales of our car in Germany goes down.
What we're going to see with Trump is regulations change. A lot of this stuff we're talking about.
I'm fine with that, but he should stick with that right now. I wish he would quit talking about punishments, quit talking about tariffs, because I actually think that the regulations and the tax.
Do you think he got Ford's attention?
I think absolutely did. Who's the number one seller of pickup trucks in America? Ford. Who's the number one buyer of those pickup trucks? His core constituency. Yeah, they're scared of him. There's no doubt about that.
But Steve, you've got cars that are made in America, but 80% of the parts are made in foreign countries. Are we going to go down to that level too?
John, I have owned a car that way.
Well, are you going to go down
and
to that
I got rid
level?
of it because it was nothing but a nightmare.
But see, that's the market, Steve. And if enough people do that, Ford will react to that. We don't need the government involved.
All right.
The point of this discussion, from my perspective, is just what I said a minute ago. In order for him to do the things that you think he's going to do, he has to achieve consensus amongst Republicans. And I haven't seen that happen yet.
But I'll give you a reverse to that, Franklin. You all may be really shocked at how successful he's going to be. Because one of the things we've talked about is the partisanship, and he is not bound by partisanship.
That is his ace in the hole. I will 100% agree with that. He is not bound to a party at this point. Now,
is that good or bad?
Well, it could be good. It certainly
good
could
or bad,
be good.
John?
From my standpoint as a partisan Republican, I don't think it's that good. But it all depends on how much you stick to the party. You know, you've always, look, Howard Baker wasn't as conservative as I was, but he understood that you have to be successful. So I'm okay if you have to compromise on some things, but now I don't want you to compromise on core issues. I'm concerned that he's a little too far on this free trade issue because, Steve, whether you want to see it right now or not, there are kickbacks that come on these. You do these things, and there are things that happen in retaliation.
During the primaries, he said taxes on people like Kim would probably have to go up a little bit. Are you for that or against it? That was his words, not mine. I'm not.
I was against that, but then later he said, "Oh no, I didn't mean that. You know, everybody's taxes are going to go down." So, you
really think that?
What?
Taxes are going to go down?
I think they should. Every time we've cut taxes, Republican and Democrat, total revenue to the government goes up. Now, here's a really big problem that nobody's talking about right now, and Trump is in complete opposition to really the Republican Party on this. He has been pretty steady, although he avoided talking about it the last 6 months, against entitlement reform. You cannot save us from bankruptcy if we don't do entitlement reform. It's one of the biggest things Paul Ryan wants to do. Trump's against it. He can't do that.
He's for a big infrastructure package.
That's $1 trillion increase in spending.
Well, frankly, I'm surprised you're not on the Trump train.
Well, I don't.
Well, they're going to have a hard time because of things like that.
There will be things that he'll get Democratic support on. The infrastructure bill, he would probably get support for that.
Israel right now, Republicans and Democrats are unified in being against the Obama administration and how they've betrayed Israel.
What's your opinion of the Israel?
I think it's time for us to stop letting the dog wag the tail.
In other words?
Well, Israel, we've had the same foreign policy for 35 years in the United States. That we were moving toward a two-state solution for the Israeli-Palestinian problem. That goes across multiple Republican and Democratic administrations.
Who's for a two-state solution in the Middle East?
Well, a lot of people are for it in
Are the
Israel.
Palestinians?
Yes.
So that's why they refuse to
John, I'm not taking anybody's side
no,
here.
I'm not either.
I'm talking
Franklin,
about
you
America.
can't make statements that aren't true.
I'm talking
the
about
only
America's
people that support,
politics.
I know, but here's the point, Franklin. Israel supports and has agreed to a two-state solution. The Palestinian Authority refuses to recognize Israel's right to exist. And we have an administration that chose to kick Israel.
John.
I think the Bible explains all this, doesn't it?
By the way, that's another thing. Whose land is it?
Whose land
Well,
is it?
Kerry gives a insulting speech where he says that it's contested land. Well, first off, if it's contested, then anybody building on it is in violation. But he only talked about the Israelis. Secondly, who had the land from as far back as we know? The Israelis, the Jews. Who took it from them? The Arabs. There is only a small part of the Arabian Peninsula where you can actually show that Arabs owned the land. They took this land at the get-go. So it's actually Israel's land from the beginning.
Here's what we know that are facts that are beyond being contested.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Again, I will say, can't be contested.
Okay.
And that is that there's a growing Arab population in the area that we're talking about. And the point that the administration has been making is that Israel will not be able to, in the future, continue to be both a Jewish state and a democracy because they're going to have a minority of their own people in their country, in that area. And so something has to be done. You either are going to say we're not a democracy and those people can't vote. That's one possibility.
You mean like they do in the Arab countries that you all are supporting?
That's exactly right, John. They'll have to do that.
They'll do what the Arab countries are already doing.
Yes, that's right, John.
That John Kerry didn't condemn.
John, we've been plowing this ground for 40 years.
No, actually,
and
we've been plowing it
Republicans
for about 4,000 years.
Well, John.
Well, I
maybe
tell you
so.
what. When is John Kerry going to give a speech demanding that Spain give Spain back to the Muslims after they kicked them out about 500 years ago?
The question is, do you?
Or how
want
about
to,
Turkey? How about Greece, where they kicked the
well, let's
Muslims
give it
out
back.
of Greece?
We can take your argument back to the Cherokee too, John. If you want to take.
Yeah, that's how crazy you people are.
It's not crazy because we aren't fighting with the Cherokee.
Well, why aren't we demanding that Spain be returned to the Muslims?
Because they're not blowing each other up either.
The Israelis aren't blowing anybody up until they get rocket shot. Matter of fact, they agreed about a year ago to suspend for 9 months the settlement building. Guess what the Palestinian Authority did for that? They spent 9 months lobbing missiles into Israel. Where was John Kerry condemning that?
He was condemning.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was.
By the way,
Yeah,
how many
was.
peace deals have been offered to the Palestinian Authority?
The exact number that's been offered to Israel.
There's been 2 in the last 15 years, and both were rejected by the Palestinians.
The fact is, John, that Israel has claimed, at least, that it supported the idea of a two-state solution.
You're right.
Okay.
But the Palestinians don't.
So the area that has to be involved in that is the area that we're talking about. And you can't keep building there and then say you're for it. It doesn't work that way.
Franklin, have the Palestinians accepted that Israel has a right to exist?
Many of them have.
Has the Palestinian Authority formally accepted the
That would be a
Israelis'
requirement
right
to achieve a deal, John.
They won't do it, Franklin. Guess who's in the PLO now, or the PLA? Now, Hamas and Fatah, both of which have called for the destruction and the expulsion of all Jews from the land. Now, how do you make a peace deal with someone that says you have no right to live here at all?
I guess you keep fighting and blowing each other up. That's what you did.
Well, Franklin, that's
the option.
This is not even a partisan thing, because let me read you the Democrats that were appalled by the Obama administration.
I understand.
Minority Leader Schumer.
Sure.
Senators Wyden, Senators Blumenthal, Senator Cardin, Chris Coons, Joe Manchin, Chris Murphy, House Democratic Whip Steny Hoyer, Representative Engel, Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the former DNC chairman, all have condemned the Obama administration and John Kerry for what they've done to Israel.
What did they do to Israel, John?
Well, one,
What'd
they
they do to
stabbed
them?
them in the back. They consorted, because according to the Egyptian papers and Egyptian intelligence, they actually had a meeting in December where they coordinated all of this. And guess what? The Obama administration, while they haven't commented, they haven't denied it either.
The problem with your analysis, John, is that you're so hung up on the headlines that you won't look at the substance underneath it. What's really going on in the Middle East right now? It's an interesting thing, by the way. Did you know that Israel and Iran and Saudi Arabia are currently coordinating on scientific and economic projects in the Middle East?
Yeah, you know
Did
why?
know that?
You know why? Because Obama unilaterally withdrew from the world, and we're no longer a leader, and we don't matter anymore. You're right.
No, we've encouraged that.
You're right.
Actually,
all
John.
kinds of new
And we
coalitions
provided
are
the money
forming.
for it. And there's something else involved, John. We just gave, again, when we start talking about facts, we just gave the Israelis, under the Obama administration, the largest foreign aid package in the history of the world.
Frankly,
We did that.
did they get a ceasefire? Now, it's fallen through, but did they get a ceasefire in Syria last week?
For a few days, yes.
Were we involved in it?
No.
We were completely shut out
That's
of the deal.
right, because
your president
that's because
has
you're right.
your
We don't have the
president
ability.
has made us
And your-
irrelevant in the world.
Okay, John.
We're irrelevant.
All right, John.
We're irrelevant in the Middle East.
Sure, John. And it's all going to be different when Donald Trump
No,
has
he's
his
got to
tongue stuck
rebuild,
down
which is much
Vladimir
more difficult.
Putin's throat.
Much more difficult. He's going to have to rebuild. You're right. Your president. Not only that, but the going out of office days of Obama, he is doing everything he can to hamstring the incoming president,
John,
which is against everything
Barack
that every
Obama,
other president has
if
done.
Barack Obama said 1/10 of the things that Donald Trump has said about Russia and Vladimir Putin, you'd be puking on the ground and demanding that he be impeached. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Well, Franklin, after he invaded Crimea, Barack Obama sent Hillary over with the reset button. Didn't do anything to him. After they've invaded other countries, didn't do anything to them. After the Chinese hacked 20 million records, did nothing.
Some very significant
And by the way,
on them
we
that
even
are
have
crippling
lied
their
recently.
economy.
We even lied recently. The news media reported, you talk about fake news, at the request of the Obama administration, that the Russians had retaliated by closing an American school in Moscow. The school had to issue a statement saying, they have not closed us, nothing has happened to us, and that was a completely phony news story meant to bolster the White House's idea that now all of a sudden, after making fun of Mitt Romney, now we say Russia's a problem.
What we did was impose tougher sanctions on Putin and his cronies who were making a killing over there. And by the way, the Russian economy is in the toilet.
Absolutely, because communism sucks. Your people just can't figure that out.
Let's take a break. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
And you're listening to WOOPLP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check into cash. The cash you need today is waiting for you at Check Into Cash. It's your money, so come in and get it.
Get a payday advance today for up to $425. At Check Into Cash, we make it quick, easy, and confidential.
The cash you need is right here, so stop worrying and stop in to Check Into Cash today.
Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Tired of standing in line to cash your paycheck? Go to usmoneycard.com. Company doesn't provide direct deposit? Visit usmoneycard.com. The smart and safe alternative to carrying cash. We'll provide direct deposit for your prepaid debit card, or you can deposit cash anytime. Your US Money Card is reloadable and can be used wherever MasterCard is accepted. You never have to worry about overdraft fees. Spend what you deposit. So log on, load up, and love your US Money Card, the safe and smart way to spend. Visit usmoneycard.com for complete details.
It's me, it's Fro Daddy, saying tune in to the Fro Daddy Show Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Local news, national blues, and a lot of stuff you just can't use. In Cleveland, Tennessee at 99.9 FM and around the world in a daze at WOOPFM.com. I might even play your requests, so call me. And if you see WOOP on your caller ID, you better answer the phone, because I won't leave you alone. Fro Daddy.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
From 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239. Or go see him
every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
See this badge? Of course not. It's radio. It says Trained Comfort Specialist. It means we're expert technicians and as reliable as the trained systems we install, keeping your winters cozy and summers cool. And when you do see this badge, you'll immediately feel more comfortable.
Ready to indulge in Trained Comfort? Call a Trained Comfort Specialist at Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. High-quality service and installation for more than 30 years.
It's hard to stop a Trained Comfort Specialist.
At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we don't just sell cars, we buy them. Bring your car, truck, or SUV down to Buy Here, Pay Here USA, and we'll give you a free appraisal with no obligation. We pay top dollar for most cars, so before you trade in your vehicle, come see us for an appraisal. At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we pay the most for your car. Visit Buy Here, Pay Here USA in Cleveland, Dayton, or Chattanooga, or go to buyheresellhere.com. That's buyheresellhere.com. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
There's a lot of stuff going on about the Russian hacking that just keeps going on and on and on. And now Trump is saying that they were delayed in briefing him about the Russians. Is there any truth to that, you think?
No idea. He's not taking, I fussed at Obama about this. I'll fuss at him too. I think he ought to be taking as many of the briefings. Now, part of the problem is some of them take the briefings, voice. Some of them take the briefings
he's having pens
in paper, and, some of them, well, that's not unheard of either. Bush did that as well as Obama has done that. I don't know. It's hard to say because personally I want them to know as much as they humanly can.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know what he's doing or what he's not doing and what other presidents have done or not done.
North Korea, they're our biggest threat right now, aren't they?
They're a real danger.
That little...
I'm curious as to what anyone thinks that we should do about that.
Well, they're to the point now, that's the whole point that's really the problem with the Iran deal that the president did. Even if you accept the rosiest explanation, which I don't, but if you do, as soon as that deal's up, they're 1 month away from having nuclear weapons. The problem with North Korea is they have nuclear weapons. And so at the point where they have nuclear weapons, it's hard to do much about them. What are you going to, if you do something theoretically, that they could detonate one of those weapons. And the problem for North Korea is not, now this missile that they're testing supposedly can reach California. That's probably not the real concern. The real concern is that they sell this crap all over the world, and they don't care who they sell it to. So they've already been in coordination with Iran, which is another problem for this Iran deal that we blundered into. So that's the real concern, is that they'll sell this technology somewhere else.
Well, I think what we ought to do is, what's the guy's name that was the, probably Obama's going to let him free before he goes out of office.
Bergdahl?
Yeah, Bergdahl. I think we ought to send Bergdahl in North Korea, and if he can bring the little guy back that's running that country
now,
back.
keep in mind, that little guy killed his own family.
I know.
Had most of his own family executed.
Where did you hear that he's going to release him?
I just keep hearing it. You think it'll happen?
Well, he's got to have a trial.
Now, the concern is that Obama will commute or give him a pardon.
I've heard there's too much to lose for Obama.
Well, one of the pushes, actually there was a push among liberal circles, and I don't think this will happen, but they were pushing during this recess yesterday. They had to actually formally close the 114th Congress and then convene the 115th Congress, and there was about a 5-minute recess there.
Yeah.
They were pushing, the liberals were, for President Obama to do a recess appointment in those 5 minutes of Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm. I heard
he didn't. I ultimately don't think he'll do this Bergdahl thing, but he could. Bill Clinton pardoned the most wanted man in the world right as he was leaving, going out the door. And it just happened to be someone who had donated millions and millions of dollars to his campaign and then further donated to the Clinton Foundation.
What about Gitmo? Why does he keep fooling around with Gitmo?
It's a campaign promise he made, and something that was
what
very
was
popular with all of our allies.
What was the purpose of that promise?
To satisfy a
To
bunch
take
of
take
left-wing loons.
away a recruiting.
It's not a recruiting tool.
It is too.
It's not.
It is too.
A recruiting
tool for our enemies.
People that
I mean, here's
shoot us up.
here's
They
the
don't
thing.
yell.
Here's the thing. There are
Guantanamo. They yell Allah Akbar.
There are CIA and other black bases around the world where we keep prisoners. Why does it have to be this one?
Because it's
Doesn't
an
make any sense.
island off
It's the
our
same-
coast that's completely secure, and it keeps America safe. That's why.
The ones, oh really? The ones there are completely secure, but the ones surrounded by our allies, those wouldn't be secure. Is that
Look,
what you're
Franklin,
saying?
I don't care what they do to them. Matter of fact, if it were me, I would put cameras in there and televise us beating the crap out of those guys every day. I'd be smearing pig guts on them every day to the national television audience. Hey, folks, you want your 72 virgins? You're not going to get it if we get a hold of you.
Why would Obama get involved in all this stuff at the last minute just to try to...
What do you mean get involved at the last
He's
minute?
doing stuff way out of line with what former presidents have shown the
What would that be
decency and
exactly?
well, like George W. Bush.
What
George W.
what
Bush
is it
did
he did
everything
exactly that was indecent, John?
Well, first off, what he did was the betrayal of Israel right at the last minute. He did something that was of major consequence that's actually
They said
unfixable.
if Hillary had won the election, they said he wouldn't have done it. Even your network says that.
Just a few weeks
Had
ago,
no
he
consequence
removed
whatsoever.
Now, we had a program in place that tracked people from really volatile Muslim countries where a lot of terrorists were at. He actually removed the program and destroyed it, so we can't track them.
What program is this, John?
The program called the National Security Entry-Exit Registration System. He announced a couple of weeks ago it was ineffective and destroyed it. So in other words, he destroyed our ability to track people from Muslim terrorist nations. He created more tension with Russia right at the end of his term when they've done all kinds of things that we should have responded to previously, and he didn't. He did the ban on drilling in these protected areas that he didn't have to do, that would have been normally you would have deferred to the new president. And he did the creation of the national monuments in Utah and Nevada, even though the locals in Utah and Nevada are opposed to those creations. You need more, Franklin?
Yeah, I'm listening, John.
Well, Franklin, he stopped the Dakota Access Pipeline because he said the protesters were against it. But in San Juan County, Utah, the public is overwhelmingly against one of the parks he just created, and he didn't even talk to them. So explain that to me. Dakota
The natives
Access,
in that area were totally in favor of it.
No, actually they weren't.
Yes, they
Franklin.
were.
By the way, haven't we in this show discussed the fact that Polk County, for example, is at a huge disadvantage because 70% of their property is off the tax rolls?
Sure.
So you think those people in Utah are happy that he just removed this huge swath of land from their tax rolls?
What I think is, John, that there are some things we do for the good of our nation, and national parks happen to be one of them.
So the senator in the state and the congressman in the state who say they're opposed to it, who say they weren't consulted, and the people in the counties who say they don't want it, they don't matter.
I didn't say
because
they don't
you
matter.
might drive out there someday and want to trespass
I
on their
didn't
property.
I didn't say that, John. What I said is that most people, and I stick with that, most, believe in the national park system.
Franklin, believing in the national park system and thinking everything ought to be a national park are two different things. And certainly, don't you think the people who are directly affected are owed some deference? When did he talk to them? When did he have a town hall out there? When did he do anything with these people? He didn't. He
Sure,
said,
John.
this
Sure,
is my
John.
legacy, and I'm willing to
Sure,
spend
John.
your money for my legacy.
You like, for example, the idea that people were able to graze on these public lands for years without paying anything for it. You like the ones where the people got these cushy leases to drill on them without paying an appropriate amount for it. I prefer the national park legacy.
what you just said is, I prefer the way it's worked and the way it was built and the way the country became great.
The way it's worked
you
since
prefer
Republican
bureaucracy.
Teddy Roosevelt
you
came up with the
prefer
idea.
bureaucracy, is what you just said.
No, I prefer thinking about the long-term future of our
strong
country.
hand of government forcing people you deem as deplorables to do what you think is right.
I prefer not having a flashing neon sign over Half Dome in Yosemite, personally. But you would like that because...
By all means, Franklin, go to the extreme.
It's not a... Yeah,
look,
me?
I'm telling you...
I'm the extreme.
What would have been? Tell me what would have been wrong in having a town hall with the people at the local.
They've been having...
This blindsided them. Completely blindsided them. The senator didn't know it was happening. The congressman didn't know it was happening.
I'm sure Donald Trump will undo it.
Actually, a lot of these things he's done are very difficult. The Israeli thing can't be undone, and he knew that. Because what Donald Trump can do is he can go to the Security Council and he can say, I'm releasing a resolution to undo it. And Russia or China will veto it like we didn't veto the first one.
All it was a resolution, John.
It takes away the Western Wall from Israel. It actually takes the Western Wall, Israel's most holy site, away from Israel.
It also happens to be the second holiest site for Islam, doesn't it?
And why
that's the problem.
All right, why is it the second holiest site for Islam?
Because the Dome of the Rock.
And why is the Dome of the Rock built there?
Because 4,000 years ago.
No, not 4,000. About 3,000. The Muslims invaded. The Muslims my point is the Jews were there thousands of years before the Muslims. The
Jews were there thousands of years before the Muslims.
They were there about 700 years before the Muslims. The Muslims invaded, and as per instructed in the Quran, they desecrated the Jewish sites and built their sites on the very same spots. That's what the Quran calls for, Franklin. By the way, the UN just released the new 2017 list of countries on the Human Rights Council, Franklin. Are you familiar with who's on it this year?
I am not.
Saudi Arabia.
But I assume it's on
Saudi Arabia, death sentences for apostasy and adultery and homosexuality. Venezuela, torture, mass hunger, catastrophe. China, extrajudicial killing.
Come out against the death penalty.
Cuba, Iraq, Qatar, Burundi, Bangladesh, United Arab Emirates, all of which are anti-woman, anti-gay, anti-free press, anti-free religion. That is your dun-dun-dun Human Rights Council at the United Nations.
I'm glad you have finally come out against the death penalty, John.
I said extrajudicial.
All right, let's move on a little bit. Obama's getting ready to make another speech in Chicago.
Well, he better make sure he's got his bodyguards in place since they're murdering.
He better make sure he's got his vest on.
Yeah, since they're murdering
since George Washington has given a farewell speech.
Well, he's going to make this in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago had 762 homicides.
New York and Los Angeles combined don't have as many murders as Chicago.
Do you think he might bring that up during his speech, or what do you think he'll talk about?
I don't know what he'll talk about.
You think he'll do the speech?
I don't know what that means.
That means he's going to talk about himself.
Okay. Well, okay.
That's when he gets stuttered on that word.
He's already said as soon as he gets out, he needs to contemplate himself.
We're going to relish comparing the degree of arrogance between President Obama and his successor.
I'll tell you what,
the point is not arrogance; it's whether you have anything to be arrogant about. He has zero accomplishments.
This was Donald Trump's tweet on New Year's Day. I kept it because it was so amazing. Happy New Year to all, including to my many enemies and those who have fought me and lost so badly. They just don't know what to do.
But they keep
Happy New Year. It's all about me, babe.
What about 8 years for that?
Obama seems to be so worried about his legacy. He even during the campaign got up and talked about his legacy.
Insult to me.
It's an insult to me and my legacy. And my legacy. If you don't vote for Hillary Clinton. And now he's saying that he could beat Trump if he'd get. If
Oh,
had
he
a
would
chance.
have. He would have cleaned the floor with
Actually,
him.
wouldn't have.
I don't think he would have
There's
either.
multiple studies that actually.
His popularity rating's
Obamacare
higher
beat
than Donald
Obama.
Trump's.
Yeah, because he's leaving office. They're happy with him because
It
he's
was
going to
been
be
that way
gone.
for the last year.
Obamacare beat Obama. Okay? And it beat Hillary, too.
What do you mean it beat Obama?
It beat Obama.
When did he lose an election?
Well, he's fixing to lose. Where's his legacy?
He has no legacy.
What
Well, he does have a legacy.
He's going to be
His legacy will be
remembered as one of the
worst
two
president in the
greatest
history of the
environmental
country.
presidents in history.
No,
number one.
he's going to be labeled. As a matter of fact, Valerie Jarrett says there's been no scandals. Apparently, because I sat down and made my own list, apparently she forgot about the Iran nuke deal that was hidden from Congress.
The Iran nuclear deal is a smashing success.
Forgot
number
about
one.
that he knew about Hillary's private service, the IRS targeting, DOJ spying on the AP reporters. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. The illegal executive orders he's done. Benghazi, Fast and Furious, that ended up in the death of a U.S. agent.
Two more.
Taliban for
non-scandals.
Bergdahl trade. The Extortion 17, which I don't know if you know what that is. Extortion 17 is the call letter for the SEAL Team 6 helicopter that was shot down after the vice president made their identity public. The recess appointment when they were actually in session, which the court reversed.
Those are scandals?
The czars who were put in place without Senate approval. Suing Arizona for enforcing federal law. Refusal to enforce the Defense of Marriage Act. The illegal war in Libya with no congressional approval. NSA spying on Americans. The Muslim Brotherhood ties of Huma Abedin.
John,
You know,
how often can you say these things without examining your soul and saying,
He wasn't finished yet, Franklin.
Solyndra, $535 million. By the way, do you know who
how
Miriam...
long can you come out here and say things like, oh, Obama's been weak in the Middle East, we haven't flexed our muscles and shown our might,
You know who he
and then said, oh yeah, but the Republicans in 2 years have failed to authorize the president to do anything.
He never asked.
Yes, he did.
He didn't ask in
Yes,
Libya.
he did.
He went in Libya without asking, Franklin.
He
exactly
sent
what
them
you...
a request for authority.
Not when he went in. He'd already been in.
Did he
Matter of
ask for
fact,
help with
Benghazi was
John,
gun
y'all
running to
have
Libya.
no policies
Benghazi
and no
was gun
ideas.
running to Libya,
You've got a
Franklin.
series of talking points, and now you've got to own them.
No, you have a president
You've
who
got
did
to
exactly
own
what Bush
what you've
did,
been
and
saying.
you didn't get mad at him.
I'm all fine with what you say you're going to do. If you have the backbone and the courage to follow through with it, and I doubt very seriously that you do.
One thing that he did do that flexed a lot of muscle. That's when he drone striked 3 U.S. citizens with no due process.
Okay.
But I thought you would be against that since you were so ugly to President Bush about rendition and things.
Okay.
So U.S. citizens being executed by direct White House order with no due process, no, you're silent on that?
Well, what I think,
Where's your indignation?
What I think is when U.S. citizens are fighting with the enemy.
So in other words, no due process.
What I think.
Did they have due process?
Well, John, if a soldier on the battlefield had shot them in the middle of a battle, would you say that was a lack of due
Well,
process?
here's the problem, Franklin. Your
What's the
people
difference?
are demanding due process for the blind sheik, but not for these 3 U.S. citizens. The blind sheik's not even a U.S. citizen. You all are demanding that these people down in Gitmo have due process and have all full constitutional protections, but not these 3 people.
Because there's no way to square what's happening with 200 years of
He ordered
American
the
history.
murder of a U.S. citizen with no due process, and you're apparently okay with that.
I didn't say that.
Do you think any more prisoners should be released from Gitmo before the
I think
new
a few
president
more
comes
of
in
them will
office?
be. I don't. It won't be all of them.
Why
You ask if you thought they should.
Do you think that they should?
I don't know the specifics of their histories.
They're the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
What I do know is that it would be unprecedented in American history for us to keep prisoners forever without even having a
Fine,
trial.
then let's execute them.
Well, we did the Nuremberg trials. Remember those, John?
I do remember that.
Okay, that was due process.
Guess what else we did? We occupied Germany for 8 years before they had free elections, but your people pulled out of
We've
Iraq
had
and
these people
created
in
ISIS.
custody for almost 15
And created
years now.
ISIS.
So
That's his legacy. ISIS is his legacy. Outside of domestic failures.
and bathrooms in North
Yeah.
Carolina.
Well, no, the judge struck that down last week. Federal judge struck all that down.
Somebody's trying to call me. He must not know my schedule. Anyway, I just can't get over this release from Gitmo. I just don't understand why, at this point in time.
Because he's arrogant.
Well, he's
and
doing Donald
down
Trump
our
a favor,
throats.
so I don't know why you would be upset about it.
No, he's doing Donald Trump a favor. How about
endangering the U.S.
citizen? Is he doing you a favor?
No, he's endangering America.
I mean, you think he's doing you a favor, Franklin?
I don't
releasing
think
these prisoners?
The ones that have been released, many of them, yes.
Over 30% have gone back to the battlefield. And the problem is they're leaders, and they're better trained when they go back.
The fact is, lots of them were not leaders.
Well, they were.
In fact, lots of them were there.
Folks, if your loved one gets killed by one who was a leader, take heart in knowing most of them weren't.
I hate to say this.
By the way, the EPA is going to start fining people in Alaska for burning firewood to stay warm. Look that one up.
It's going to be an interesting next few years.
Yes, it will be, watching the Republican Party fight with Donald Trump.
Let me say something on a little bit.
That's what's going to happen.
Over the break, Carrie Fisher died, and somebody made an interesting point about, now she was a feminist, and Steve Martin got in trouble for his tweet because he said she was beautiful, and they said that was sexist. But somebody pointed out that she was an empowering feminist. That she was asked, and this is a question, said, when you were asked what fathers should say to their daughters about the bikini outfit that she wore in Star Wars, she said, tell them that a giant slug captured me and forced me to wear that stupid outfit. And then I killed him because I didn't like it, and then I took it off backstage. And the person pointed out that that was an answer that empowered girls didn't ask them to be victims.
It's a new year. Just remember that, Franklin.
It is indeed.
It's a new year.
Not quite. It'll be a new year on January 20th.
Actually, that is
when all risk of danger has passed.
Hey, that is my New Year's this year. I think I'm going to celebrate New Year's on the 20th.
By the way, Hillary going to attend the inauguration. George W. is going to attend the inauguration.
I meant to say that.
Usually
they should.
Now, wait a minute. Hillary has to go because her husband is an ex-president.
She doesn't have to go, but I think it's an important testament to American democracy when it happens.
Well, if her husband,
you might want to tell Hollywood that because they seem to want to be vindictive about it.
I bet you that she doesn't really want to go, that she's going to go.
You know what?
Nobody
I'm
wants.
certain that she doesn't want to go.
Do you think Al Gore wanted to certify the Electoral College in 2000?
But he did,
which he had to do.
And that's the best tradition of American democracy,
that is true.
and that's the way it should happen.
Although I do wish some of these Democrats would ask their Hollywood buddies to participate in the pomp and circumstance of a new president. Not necessarily Trump, but the fact that our system functions, and quit being vindictive the way they're doing.
Well, the University of Alabama band's going to be at the inauguration. I wish the
University of Tennessee band's going to be there.
Are they going to be there? Good. I hadn't heard that yet. I just think that's enough. Alabama and Tennessee bands playing.
What about Lane Kiffin?
Lane Kiffin, I love that.
There was a headline yesterday that said Lane Kiffin managed to get fired from a job he had already quit. That's a real accomplishment.
Hey, folks, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Clancy. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30. Now, back to more music on Whoop FM.